There are haunted places, and then there are places where ghost stories are so persistent that eventually you start wondering if the building itself is trying to tell you something. A shadow moves down an empty hall, a door opens when no one is standing near it, a voice answers a question when everyone in the room was silent, and sometimes people see something that looks exactly like a person until it disappears. Tonight, we're going to 10 places across America with reputations for some of the country's strangest paranormal encounters. And I'm not talking about my cousin's friend's roommate once heard something weird. We're talking about locations where visitors, employees, investigators, and witnesses have repeatedly described similar experiences over the years. Now, does this prove ghosts exist? No. And we're not going to pretend it does. But some experiences may have natural explanations. Some are stories that have grown with time. Some have been investigated and some remain unexplained. But that's exactly where NightlyHaven likes to live, somewhere in between. There's probably an explanation, and okay, but what the hell was that? So turn down the lights, maybe don't turn them all the way down, and let's begin.
Fear tingles down your spine and hairs stand on end. Mysteries unknown and tales in the dark. Are you ready? Hello?
Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California. Let's start with a house that looks like a ghost story before you even hear the ghost stories. The Winchester Mystery House. And if you've never seen photographs of this place, imagine someone gave an architect unlimited money and then whispered, "Make it confusing." Doors open into walls, staircases lead nowhere, windows look into other rooms. An entire section of the house seems to have been designed by someone who had never actually been inside a normal house. The property is famous because of Sarah Winchester, the widow of firearms William Wirt Winchester. Construction continued for decades, and eventually the mansion became surrounded by legends that Sarah was building continuously to confuse or appease spirits. But we're here for what supposedly happened inside. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps in empty areas of the house. Some have described seeing apparitions. Others have reported the feeling of being watched when they were completely alone. And then there's the stories involving the strange architecture itself. People have described hearing movements behind doors only to discover nobody there. Others have reported seeing shadowy figures moving through the hallways. One particularly creepy aspect of the Winchester story is how often the experiences involve movement. A person walking, footsteps approaching, and something appearing to move through the doorway, and then nothing else. Now, the Winchester Mystery House does not provide scientific proof that these experiences are paranormal, and that's important. But the stories have become so closely associated with the property that paranormal tours and ghost stories have become part of the public fascination with the house. And honestly, I don't know what's worse, a ghost standing at the end of the hallway or accidentally opening a door and discovering you built your own architectural escape room. Because at Winchester, if something starts walking towards you, you might not even know whether it's a ghost or the floor plan. And somehow, that's worse. The Lemp Mansion, St. Louis, Missouri. The Lemp Mansion doesn't have one ghost story. It has an entire family reunion of them. And unfortunately, none of the guests RSVP'd. The Lemp family made its fortune in brewing and became one of the most prominent families in St. Louis. But the family's history was marked by extraordinary tragedy. And after several deaths and unalivements within the family, the mansion developed a reputation for being haunted. Today, visitors report strange activity throughout the house. Footsteps, voices, objects moving, apparitions, and perhaps most interestingly, different people report encounters in the same areas of the mansion. The property itself now offers paranormal experiences where visitors are told about reported activity throughout multiple floors. According to accounts associated with the mansion, some guests have reported hearing someone walking overhead when nobody was upstairs. Others have reported hearing voices coming from empty rooms. And then there are encounters with figures, a person standing at the end of the hallway, a shadow moving across the doorway, someone appearing to be in a room until you look again. Ooh, spooky. One of the reasons Lemp is so fascinated is that the stories don't revolve around one single famous apparition. Instead, the entire mansion has developed a reputation for activity, and that's almost creepier because if one ghost appears in one room, you can avoid that room. But if the entire house has a reputation, congratulations, you're out of options. The Lemp Mansion itself openly embraces the paranormal reputation and even hosts ghost hunting experiences using equipment such as EMF meters and other investigative tools. Of course, an EMF reading doesn't automatically mean a ghost is standing nearby. It means you got an EMF reading. What caused it? That's the interesting part. Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Now we're going somewhere that looks like it was designed specifically for a ghost story. The Myrtles Plantation, Spanish moss, ancient trees, and an old southern mansion, and enough legends to make you question whether the house has more residents than the guest book suggests. One of the most famous stories involves a woman named Chloe. According to legend, Chloe was an enslaved woman who lived at the plantation and eventually became associated with the haunting. She's often described as wearing a green headscarf. And this is where we need to slow down because the Chloe story is not established history. Researchers have questioned whether Chloe existed as the legend describes her. That's important because the history of slavery at plantations like Myrtles is real and horrific enough without turning uncertain folklore into fact. But the haunting stories, those are extensive. Visitors have reported seeing a woman in or around the house. Some claim to have seen her reflected in windows or photographs. Others have described unexplained footsteps and voices. There's also reported of children appearing in or around the property, and one of the most famous photographs associated with the Myrtles supposedly shows a strange figure standing among the trees. Is it a ghost, a person, a photographic artifact? Nobody can conclusively establish from the photograph alone, and that's exactly the kind of mystery that keeps the story alive. The Myrtles' reputation for paranormal activity actually goes back decades, with ghost stories appearing in published accounts as early as the mid-20th century. So whatever you believe about individual legends, the haunting reputation isn't something that appears on the internet 5 minutes ago. It's been part of the property's folklore for generations. And honestly, standing under Spanish moss at an old plantation after dark, I'm not saying I believe in ghosts. I'm just saying I'm not going to be the person who volunteers to check the upstairs hallway. The Villisca Axe Murder House, Villisca, Iowa. This one is different because before we talk about ghosts, we have to talk about something that really happened. In June of 1912, 8 people were murdered inside Iowa farmhouse. The killer was never convicted. The victims included the Moore family and 2 young sisters who had been staying overnight. Today, the house is one of America's most notorious paranormal locations, and the reports aren't limited to seeing shadows. Visitors have described footsteps, doors opening and closing, unexplained noises, apparitions, sudden feelings of dread, and strange activity concentrating on around the room where the victims died. The house's current owners acknowledge that guests have reported everything from apparitions to footsteps and unexplained door openings and closings. And some visitors have reported experiences involving children. There are stories of people hearing children's voices. There are also claims that children have seen or heard playing in the house. One particularly disturbing report involves visitors believing they heard a child say, "Mommy," during an EVP recording. Can you say creepy? And here's the thing about Villisca. You can argue whether an EVP is paranormal, or you can argue about whether a shadow in the photograph is a ghost. You can argue about whether a door moved because of something supernatural, or a draft. But when you're inside Villisca, you're standing in a location of a real unsolved crime, that changes the atmosphere completely. Because the sadness people describe there doesn't require a ghost to explain it. The house itself is a reminder of something terrible that happened to real people. And perhaps that's why the stories are so persistent. Hundreds of visitors have reported unusual experiences. Others have spent the night and experienced absolutely nothing. And the little details matter, because if everybody experienced the same thing every time, we would have a very different mystery. Instead, some people walk out saying nothing happened. Others walked out convinced they encountered something, and that disagreement is what makes Villisca so fascinating. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, we're coming home to Pennsylvania, and Eastern State Penitentiary has something most haunted attractions would die for: actual historical witnesses. The prison opened in 1829 and became famous for its system of solitary confinement. Prisoners were isolated from one another. They lived alone, they ate alone, they exercised alone. Imagine spending months or years with almost no meaningful human contact. Now imagine the sound of a person walking down the hallway outside your cell, and knowing you aren't allowed to see them. Eastern State's haunting reputation isn't a recent invention. The penitentiary says that mysterious visions and eerie experiences were being reported by officers and prisoners as early as the 1940s. And that's where things get interesting, because this isn't just somebody went on a ghost tour and felt weird. There are generations of reported experiences. Visitors have described hearing footsteps in empty areas. Some report hearing pacing inside cells. Others have described distant cries or voices. And then there's cell block 12. This is probably the most famous paranormal area in the prison. Visitors and investigators have reported disembodied laughter coming from the cell blocks. Not laughter from a person they can see, laughter apparently coming in from the darkness. And paranormal investigators reported capturing strange visual phenomena there. The prison itself even mentions footage of recording during an episode of Ghost Hunters, which investigators claim to capture what appeared to be a figure. Now, is this proof of a ghost? No. The controversial piece of the television footage isn't scientific proof, but here's something I find much more interesting. The reports from Eastern State aren't all identical. People describe different things: a sound here, a shadow there, footsteps, voices, a feeling of being watched. It's almost as if the building doesn't have one ghost story. It has thousands of little stories. And perhaps that's what happens when you put generations of suffering into one enormous stone building. Eventually, every sound starts to feel like it belongs to somebody. Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, Weston, West Virginia. This may be one of the most intimidating buildings in the entire list. This place has something that many haunted locations don't. People can actually go inside at night and investigate it. The asylum itself says that guests and staff have reported apparitions, unexplained voices, unexplained sounds, and other paranormal activity, and the reports get very specific. Some visitors have described hearing voices in empty rooms. Others report footsteps moving through the hallways. There have been reports of shadow figures. And then there are the experiences that are much harder to describe. A sudden feeling of being watched, something touching someone, a sound coming from an empty room, a voice seemingly answered a question. One investigation report describes multiple investigators hearing what they believe were disembodied screams. Another investigator reported seeing what appeared to be a dark figure moving across the hallway before disappearing. Now, that investigator's report is exactly that, an investigator's personal experience. It isn't proof that a ghost crossed the hallway, but it's an interesting account, and it looks scary. An asylum activity acknowledges the paranormal reputation. In fact, it offers dedicated paranormal tours and overnight investigations. So imagine walking through this enormous building at night. The lights are low. You're separated from the other group. You hear something down the hallway. You stop. Silence. Then footsteps. 1, 2, 3. Coming closer. You turn your flashlight towards the hallway. Nothing. And then you hear something from behind you. That's the moment where you discover just how quickly your skepticism can become, "I've decided ghosts are real enough for tonight." The Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, Colorado. If you've seen The Shining, you already know the Stanley Hotel has a bit of a reputation. But the real story begins long before most people ever heard the name Overlook Hotel. The most famous stories involve Elizabeth Wilson, a housekeeper who was seriously injured in a gas explosion at the hotel in 1911. She survived and eventually returned to work. today's guests have reported experiencing what they describe as a gentle or nurturing presence associated with Elizabeth's story. And that is actually one of the more unusual things about the Stanley. Not every haunting story is terrifying. Some are almost comforting. But then there's room 217. This room became famous because Stephen King stayed there in 1974. During this stay, King reportedly had disturbing dreams that helped inspire The Shining. But room 217 already had a strange history. The 1911 gas explosion occurred there, and over the years, guests have reported unusual activity associated with the room. Objects supposedly moving, sounds, strange sensations, and reports of a woman appearing. There are also stories involving children in the hotel. Guests have reported hearing children running and playing in the hallways when no children were present. Others have described hearing music or voices coming from empty areas. The hotel's reputation has become so intertwined with the supernatural that paranormal television programs have investigated the property. But here's my favorite part. The Stanley Hotel isn't an abandoned ruin. It is still a functioning hotel. People still sleep there, which means somewhere tonight, someone may be lying in a perfectly ordinary hotel bed, hearing footsteps in the hallway and thinking, probably housekeeping. Meanwhile, housekeeping is downstairs wondering why 217 keeps making noise. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Louisville, Kentucky. Waverly Hills is one of those places where the atmosphere almost feels unfair because the building is massive, old, empty, and it once was a tuberculosis sanatorium. Thousands of people passed through its doors. Many passed away there. And over the years, the building developed a reputation for paranormal activity that is almost as famous as its history. Visitors have reported hearing voices, footsteps, crying, knocking, and unexplained movement. One of the most famous areas in the infamous tunnel commonly called the Death Tunnel. And here is where the internet has exaggerated the story. You probably heard that the bodies were simply thrown down a chute. The reality is more complicated. The tunnels was used to discreetly transport supplies, patients, and bodies, but the legend became something much darker. And once the stories began, they grew. The paranormal investigators have reported seeing shadow figures moving through the building. Others describe hearing voices in empty rooms. Some report feeling touches on their body, and there are reports of seeing people, not shadowy blobs, not mist, people. Visitors have claimed to see figures standing in the hallway or doorways before disappearing. There's also a particularly famous legend involving a young boy, sometimes called Timmy. Visitors have reported hearing a child playing with a ball or interacting with them in the building. Some investigators have attempted to communicate with him using paranormal equipment. Again, none of this establishes that Timmy is actually a ghost, but the story has become deeply embedded in the Waverly Hill folklore. And that's what makes the place so fascinating, because if you have a building filled with legitimate history and layered over that history or decades of people saying something happened to me in there, maybe they're mistaken. Maybe the building produces strange sounds. Maybe suggestion plays a role, or maybe something else is going on. That's the question. And Waverly Hills has been asking it for years. The Queen Mary, Long Beach, California. Now, we're getting off dry land because apparently the dead weren't satisfied with haunting houses. They wanted a cruise ship. The RMS Queen Mary is one of America's most famous haunted locations, and this ship has several different areas associated with reported paranormal activity. Let's start with B340. The Queen Mary said to report of strange activity in this cabin go all the way back to the ship's day as an ocean liner. Guests have reported hearing strange noises, seeing figures, experiencing objects apparently moving, and feeling as though someone else is in the room. The ship's own materials even tell the story of a supposed spirit named Walter associated with the room. Then there's the first-class swimming pool. This is one of the most famous paranormal locations aboard the ship. The story involves a little girl named Jackie. According to legend, guests have reported hearing a little girl singing. Others claim to have seen a child. Some say they hear someone playing or running around the pool area. And then there's the engine room, specifically watertight door number 13. Visitors have reported hearing banging noises around the door. And if you're thinking, okay, but it's an old ship, ships make noises. Correct. Absolutely. Old ships make astonishing number of noises, but that's where the Queen Mary becomes interesting because the paranormal interpretation isn't based on one unexplained bang. It's the accumulation of stories, different visitors, different experiences, different parts of the ship. And the Queen Mary itself openly promotes several of these haunted locations. So imagine being below deck in a massive ship surrounded by steel with the ocean on the other side of the wall and then hearing bang, bang, bang. And someone tells you, oh yeah, that's a ghost. I'd like to formally request a different room, preferably one on land. San Francisco, California. And finally, The Rock, Alcatraz. There's something uniquely unsettling about Alcatraz because the island doesn't need a ghost story. It already feels like one. It's isolated, surrounded by water, covered in fog, and filled with the remains of a prison that housed some of America's most notorious criminals. But over the years, Alcatraz developed a reputation for paranormal encounters. Visitors have reported hearing voices in empty cell blocks, footsteps, unexplained sounds, cold sensations, and feeling that someone is standing nearby. One of the most famous legends involves Cell 14D, where prisoner Al Capone was once confined. Paranormal stories claim that visitors have heard strange sounds or felt an oppressive presence there. But there's another story that is particularly creepy. During the prison's operating years, there were reports of prisoners hearing unexplained sounds and experiencing strange events inside the cell house. Now we have to be careful here. Alcatraz is a huge amount of folklore surrounding it, and not every paranormal story has a documented historical source. The National Park Service officials' material focuses primarily on the actual people who lived and worked there, and that distinction matters because sometimes the most compelling stories aren't ghost stories at all. They're the first-hand accounts from people who actually experienced life on the island. The National Park Service has preserved oral histories from former prisoner guards and residents, real voices, real memories, real people describing what it was like to live inside that place, and that creates an interesting question. When people say Alcatraz feels haunted, are they actually sensing something supernatural, or are they responding to a place where thousands of real humans' experiences have accumulated? Because imagine standing inside one of those cells, the door closes, metal locks, the corridor goes silent, and you realize that for years this wasn't a tourist attraction. It was somebody's entire world. Some people escaped Alcatraz, some people died there, and some people spent years there. Now their stories are preserved behind glass and concrete. Perhaps that's why Alcatraz doesn't need an apparition walking down the hallway. The history itself follows you, and if something does whisper your name from the darkness, well, good luck convincing yourself it's just the plumbing. So, are these places actually haunted? That's the question we can't answer, and I don't think we should pretend we can, because there are 3 different things happening at a haunted location. There is the history, there are the stories people tell, and then there are the experiences people actually have. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. A person can genuinely hear footsteps without knowing what caused them. Someone can genuinely see a figure without knowing whether it's a ghost, and a person can capture something strange on a recording without knowing whether it's paranormal. And that's where the mystery lies, because if we already knew the answer, it wouldn't be a mystery anymore. Maybe ghosts exist, maybe some hauntings are psychological, maybe buildings can influence how we perceive sound, darkness, movements, and even time. Maybe some stories have been exaggerated over generations, maybe some experiences have completely ordinary explanations, and maybe, just maybe, there are things happening that we haven't figured out yet. And there's one thing every location on this list has in common. They aren't just spooky buildings, they are places where something happened. People lived there, people suffered there, people died there, people left memories behind. And generations later, strangers walk into those same rooms and say, I don't know what I just experienced. And honestly, that's enough to keep me curious, because the best mysteries aren't the ones that scare you for 5 minutes, they're the ones that follow you home. So the next time you're walking through an old building and you hear footsteps behind you, don't immediately assume it's a ghost. It could be the building settling, it could be another visitor, it could be the plumbing, it could be absolutely nothing. But maybe don't turn around too quickly, just in case. I'm Nikki, and this is Nightly Haven. Until next time, keep the lights on, watch your shadows, and remember, some places are haunted by ghosts, others are haunted by what happened there, and sometimes there's no easy way to tell the difference. Night.